Reduce Cheating. This presentation and a video of this presentation, so both the slides and video, are available at NWOET.org/COVID-19. You see that at the bottom of the screen. I know that can be a little bit difficult to read, so I'll say that again, NWOET.org/COVID-19. You're welcome to email me anytime, Minier, M as in mother, INIER, at NWOET.org. And you can give us a call when we're here available. We'll pick up the phone and answer live. If not, leave a message at 888-EDTECH8, and we'll get back to you by the next school day. As we look at how do we keep kids from cheating, we know that this is difficult when you're in the classroom with the students. If you can see in my little picture here, it's probably hard to tell, but the one student has notes down on their knee. Another one's looking across the aisle to copy from someone else's paper. Third one is actually like reading answers that they wrote on their arm. It can be really difficult to stop cheating, even when you're face-to-face with the kids. When they're at home, honestly, it's impossible. Some of the things students do at home, I mean, it's no surprise. You probably can name a few I don't have on this list, but they use resources that they're not allowed or not supposed to use. They'll submit somebody else's work as their own. They'll copy answers. They'll share answers. They'll send messages back and forth. So what are you going to do? And most of these strategies I'm talking about today really work if the students are face-to-face 100% of the time, if they're via distance 100% of the time, or if, as we expect this fall, students will be with us part of the time, but they'll probably also do some of their learning at home. And really, the reality is we have to redefine what cheating is. So this is my personal list. I've taught over 100 courses online that have used both some offline activities and some live interactive video. And this is what I tell my students. When you're at home, open book is always okay. Searching the internet is allowed. And asking help from your parents and peers, that's okay too. I make it okay because, frankly, they're going to do it whether I say it's okay or not. And I want to make sure everybody is as level of playing field as possible. My low-performing students, my struggling students, my students that perhaps have parents that are very, very strict, and my students that are extremely successful, my students that have parents that are maybe very liberal, and my students that maybe have parents that don't pay much attention to them. Fortunately, that's a small number, but there's some there. I want to make sure they all know the rules. So I encourage you, take these rules. You can tweak them around or throw them out and write your own, but whatever rules you're going to have for completing the work at home, send it home with the students in paper format. I encourage you put it like on a half sheet of paper, make it a brightly colored sheet of paper, and I tell the students, put this up on your refrigerator or tape it at the desk where you do your work. I want you to know what the rules are for my class. For Mr. Munir's class, here are the rules. Now, for the many parents who really do want to help their students follow the rules and be successful, that'll be a reminder for the students and parents on what's permitted, what's not. And what's not okay is if someone else completes your assignments. That means they can't find the answers for you. They can't write the answers down on a sheet of paper. They can't type them into the computer for you. That is not permitted. You need to be doing those activities yourself. You can get help in a lot of different places, but I expect what is written on paper or typed into the computer, I expect that to be done by you and to be your work, not someone else's. And just that definition, it will help parents enforce the rules, because right there on the refrigerator, Jimmy, this is what you're supposed to be doing. I understand that, and I'm going to help you as much as I can, but you actually have to write it down. You have to do that composition. I cannot do that for you. I can maybe help you. I can maybe proofread it, but you're the one that has to put it on paper. We have to help students know home is for learning. It's a place for self-checks. It's a place for practice. It's for projects demonstrating what we've learned. Home can't be a place for testing. It just doesn't work. You know, we can want it to happen, but it can't. So let me talk a little bit more about what can happen at home. When you give students assignments that are going to be completed outside the classroom, Really, it doesn't even have to be at home. Be that something they're going to do study hall, lunch period, on the bus riding to an event, if we get to do that again. Um, Anytime the students are not directly in your supervision, I encourage you to make it of a low point value. This is what research and best practice is telling us. It should be worth some points. You want the student to be rewarded, even if it's only 2 or 3 or maybe 10 points, depending on what your grading scale looks like. It needs to be worth some points, but it should be a low point value. We don't do high stake testing at home. It doesn't work. I encourage you to make mastery learning. In the writing process, for example, um, you set certain standards, certain expectations. Let's say you give a writing assignment to be done at home or started in class and finished at home, whatever it might be. Let's say that writing assignment has to have 300 words and a minimum of 5 paragraphs. And the student comes back with 3 paragraphs. Well, you have them resubmit. This is more work on the teacher's time. Trust me. Long story, but I have a degree in journalism and I taught English and English composition for a period of time. Poor children. Poor me too, I think. But anyway, it was a lot of work grading these things. So I didn't do them too often. But when I did do them, I wanted the students to perform well. I wanted to see that student's best effort at writing. And I would send them back and I would make them rewrite them. With Google and using Google Docs, that whole process is much, much easier. And again, we have separate classes in this series, and you can also come to us for some separate help on that. But there are ways in Google Docs you can see their first draft. You don't have to start over from scratch. They can make changes to it, and you can follow each of the different changes. You can see when they changed them, and you can see who was logged in that made those changes. And so I encourage students, and I encourage you as a teacher, whether it's math, science, social studies, whatever it might be, set your standards, keep your standards pretty high, and then have students resubmit. Go for that mastery on whatever that content is. Evaluation, high stakes testing. I'm going to see what you remember, what you can do without any other resources. Save that for the times when students are with you face to face. Now, again, no one knows what this fall is going to look like for sure. But our best guess is students will be face to face with us at least part of the time in the school building. And unfortunately, probably they will be at home part of the time. Depending on the grade level and what happens with the pandemic, they may be more time at home than what we would like to see. But we expect that we will at least begin the year with students spending some time face to face. And so you can use that face to face time for activities that work best face to face. And that includes some evaluation, mentoring, and other types of support where it really helps to have them in the classroom. When they're at home, encourage them to collaborate with parents, siblings, and peers in their development of these projects. And let them know that this is what you expect. This is what you want them to do at home. We know some students have a better support system than others, and we don't live in a perfect world, but as best we can, we might be able to help students arrange that support system if they don't have it in their own family, like helping put together study groups with other students in their own grade. When you give your assignments, make sure you have very clear expectations. This is always important. Use Google Classroom to post your assignments. And when you post the assignment, make sure you always have these 3 pieces of information. You might have more detail, but you always begin with this: the subject and the due date. The action, what you want the student to do. Read page 55 to 61, and then answer questions 1, 5, and 9. Using pencil and paper, because some of the work we have our students do will almost certainly be online using Google Forms, Google quizzes, and other tools, but some of it should still be in paper format. We don't want students to do all their work online. It becomes boring, frankly, and we want students to have a variety of learning experiences and a variety of testing experiences. We still want to make sure students have at least some experiences with taking tests on pencil and paper, because as they move through school and as they move beyond school, they're probably going to be faced with online tests, yes, but probably also some paper and pencil tests as well. So we want to make them, yes, for their own benefit. We need them to be good test takers. So we will give some testing, some assessment in paper and pencil format, and we'll give some in electronic format as well. For the writing process, I'd certainly be leaning towards more electronic, just because that is so beneficial for the revision and resubmission process. Makes it a lot easier from a teacher standpoint, much faster to go through your work. For other kind of subject areas, it may vary depending on whether you're using charts, diagrams, mathematical equations, and so forth, what your ratio is going to be. But we always want to give students a mix of different types of activities and different types of assessment. So the subject, the action, and finally the resource. You want to state this resource in very clear terms. Clear terms so a parent, guardian, or sibling helping the student learn knows what to look for. Don't just say your science textbook. Say the textbook with the green frog on the cover. You want to help them know exactly what resource. I taught high school chemistry for many years, and I can't tell you the number of times, face to face, in the classroom with the students, I would say, get out your workbook and answer the questions at the end of the chapter. And half of them would get their textbook open. You know, when I'm face to face with them, I can see that mistake and remind them, it's in your workbook, not your textbook. When they're by distance, when they're not with them, it becomes all the more important to make it really clear which book, which manual, which test, which website they're supposed to be going to get their work completed. As you're giving assignments also, make sure you include some part of that assignment is going to be try on your own. So I just said, yeah, you can have, you can open book, open internet, ask your peers, your friends, your tutors, your parents. That's all allowed. But on some questions, I'm going to say, try this yourself without extra help. And I'm going to tell the student very directly, this is a question that will appear on Thursday's test when we're face to face again in class. So there's no surprises. They're going to know very clearly what your expectation is for them when they're working at home, when they're learning at home, and what the expectation is and what the test questions are going to look like when they're in the classroom. And you'll tell them what tools are going to be available. You'll be able to complete this using Google Docs and a spell checker, or you're going to be doing this on paper and pencil and no dictionaries allowed. Whatever the condition is going to be, I make sure they know what that is, and I give them those kind of practice questions on their at-home assignment. Testing, yeah, we want to make testing face-to-face whenever we can. The at-home work is for self-checks, for practice, and for learning, and then the assessments face-to-face, if at all possible. Another tip here, and I know this can be really hard to read on the screen. And again, this presentation and these slides are available. You can download them at NWOET.org/COVID-19. I'll show that website again in just a moment. That you interact with every student every time you give an assignment. And that may be every day. Now, if you've got a large class, that can be really difficult. Google Classroom can be your friend on this as well. Now, when students walk into your class and you're face-to-face, this interaction with the student, it happens pretty naturally. I mean, most days you may not interact with every student every time they walk in, but over the course of a week, you probably know, who have I talked to, who haven't I talked to? And typically, at least for me, I make an extra point of making sure I get to Jimmy and Barbara because, I don't think I've talked with them at all this week. And so I want to have that interaction with them. That kind of interaction is more difficult when you're by a distance. So we replace that live interaction typically on a daily basis with students with a check on every assignment. If students are self-checking, you ask them to submit the work and you review it. Hey, great job. I love using Google quizzes, Google Forms turned into a quiz, as a self-check. Look for the key points. To be honest, from all of the online classes I've taught, when I've taught them online and when I've taught them face-to-face, the same content, the face-to-face, we always cover more stuff. The learning is deeper. We get into more interesting discussions, and the students generally do a little bit better on the test in the face-to-face. Not a lot, but a little bit better. It's just more engaging, and you can make sure they're paying attention easier when they're face to face. When they're at a distance, helping make sure that they're paying attention includes these really short 2 or 3 question assessments focused on the specific skills you're looking at right there. Don't give them a 10 or 15 or 20 question quiz. Give them a short quiz. It does a couple, 3 things. By having a very short quiz, it gives you some quick feedback. Did they get today's concept? Did they understand what point of view means? What's author's point of view? Or did they understand the difference between a preposition and an article? Whatever it might be, just real quick, very direct. These 3 things you need to know. You can have Google self-grade these things, so you don't actually have to grade them. It'll automatically grade them. And if students don't get, you pick the score, but if they don't get, say, 80% on it, they have to redo it. Now, that's great because students very quickly learn. If you enforce this, students very quickly learn that it's better off for me to do the work the first time because my teacher is going to make me redo it until I at least get that 80%. Now, doesn't that mean they're going to cheat? They're going to text the answers back and forth? We know they can do that anyway, but it's reinforcing to the student that you care about this assignment. This assignment means something. In the spring, most teachers experienced a large percentage of their students getting behind on their work, not turning in all of their assignments. That's one of the things that we want to try and make different in the fall. It's better, especially that first couple weeks of school. You get those students oriented to this is the way things are this fall. Yes, I know some of you didn't turn your assignments in the spring, and honestly, I know that in many cases it didn't make much difference. You got to move to the next grade level anyway. That was a difficult time for all of us. It was a different time for all of us. This fall, here are my expectations. And my expectations are that you will complete every single assignment and get them in on time, just like I would expect in class. Now, because you as a teacher are going to have to take a little bit more time monitoring this, especially the first couple weeks, you may want to reduce. This is Roger's practical guide. Almost everything I'm telling you today is backed up by research, observational evidence. I can tell you this is where you can go to see what I'm explaining with you is, in fact, the right way to do things, an effective way that works to do things. This next comment is kind of my own take on things, but I think it's honest. It's much better to have maybe 2 assignments that first week and 1 or 2 or 3 assignments at the very most that next week. I don't give them an assignment every night. I'll make assignments that carry over for a couple of days or 3 days even. It's much better to have those assignments completed by everybody or almost everybody. And for you as the teacher to have time to do follow-up with those students when they don't get it in. So you set the learning standard right at the start of the school year. That is really important, and we want to get that out in their mind and in their work ethic of, okay, this is how you're going to work for Mr. Muneer. When you move on to the next thing, non-academic content, and especially those of you that have lots of students in your class, one of the things that I encourage you to do is at least once a week, also contact that student one-to-one and let them know you care about them as a person. Right, what's this all have to do with cheating? The things I'm describing here, it helps reduce cheating. It helps improve students' performance. It helps make sure that they're going to have a better learning experience and they're more likely to learn your content. And we know for sure that students that get frequent self-checks and they submit those checks and they get feedback are less likely to cheat. They're more likely to feel confident. They're more likely to feel like they're learning the material and that they're going to be doing what you want them to do to meet their academic learning objectives. But even more important to that, we know that students who believe their teacher cares about them, who understands that they might be tired or hungry or scared or confused about COVID-19 or anything else that might have been going on in their life before anybody ever heard of COVID-19, that you as a teacher care about them and will support them. Sometimes they might bring things to you, as they did when you were face-to-face in the classroom, you're not really sure what to do with. Let the student know, I'm going to try and find someone to help you with that. And then you talk to your principal, guidance counselor, whoever it might be. Sometimes it's going to be a technical issue. They say, you know what, the camera just won't work on my Chromebook. And you might not know how to fix that, but you let the students know, you know what? I'm going to either tell you, send you a link on how to contact the person who can fix that, or I'm going to pass your name along, and then follow up with them. Just make a little note and you say, hey, did you get your camera working okay? Or, hey, see your camera's working okay. So they know that you're paying attention to them, that you care about them as an individual. Again, this is typically a building level process or district wide where you work with other teachers. If you've got a lot of teachers, or I'm sorry, a lot of students in one teacher, well, see who else is teaching those students. Again, working with your principal. And if each teacher will take responsibility for, say, around 30 or so students, that usually works out. It realistically takes 1 to 2 hours a week to make these kind of contacts. And the way in which you contact them, if it's face-to-face, 5 days a week, that's early. See me the next school day. Unless it's a dramatic life or death, suicide prevention kind of emergency, see me the next school day. But when our students are at a distance and we don't see them every day, we have to develop some new communication strategies. One of the things you may want to consider doing is establishing office hours, because you don't want students and parents talking to you at all hours of the day or night. It's not reasonable. It's not fair to you and your own personal life and schedule. So again, working with your principal and other teachers, determine, you may decide that you want to have office hours, maybe Tuesday afternoons from 1 to 2, and I don't know, it's up to you, but maybe Thursdays from 6 until 7:30 at night for the parents that are working during the day. Whatever that is, these are the established office hours. This is when you can talk to me. I'm sorry, I do care about your child. I do care about learning, but this is me speaking. You've got to talk with your principal and your teachers how you put it together. But my rules, this is what I follow for real, is if you call me at home at night or you send me a text at night, unless it's an actual health and safety emergency, in which case I'm glad to talk with you. And I've gotten some of them. But if it's like, what's tomorrow's assignment or whatever, I just let everyone know I'm going to be answering your question by 3 o'clock the next school day. Yeah, you have to establish that parameter so that you yourself can handle having many students with a lot of different legitimate questions, but you put that structure together. When you do those office hours, it might be by Google Meet, live interactive video. Tanya and I here at NWOET, we regularly set office hours. We publish, here's the link. If you've got a question, come on in. We'll be live by video then. You can also call us by cell phone. You can call our 888-EdTech8 number, and we'll answer it live if we're able. If we're not able to, leave a message, and I will get back to you by the next school day. And specifically, I'll say by 3 p.m. the next school day. One of the examples I had was basically got called to the principal's office about 8:10 in the morning. Classes hadn't started yet, and it was like, Roger, here you're not answering your questions. You're not answering messages sent to you by your students. It's like, ma'am, not that I know of. But what do you mean? She says, well, got a parent call me this morning at 8 o'clock. They were on the phone and said their child had sent a request to not be required to take the test you're given today. They said, because of their illness, they didn't have time to prepare for it, and that you never got back to them. I said, well, here's my policy on things like that, and I'll be glad to share it with them. And I did have a procedure established, but I said, man, I don't think I ever got a message like that. He said, well, parents said they contacted you, left a message, and you never got back to me. So I went and I looked through things, and sure enough, this was Tuesday morning this happened. 9:15 Monday night, I did have an email come in from a parent saying my son needs to skip the test at school tomorrow. And then they're on the phone to the principal at 8 o'clock the next morning saying I didn't answer. Well, fortunately, I had a policy on that, and I had already shared that with everybody that said, when you send me a message, I will respond by 3 p.m. the next school day. I am not monitoring my cell phone or text messages or emails 24 hours. I don't stay on until 11 p.m. and get on again at 6 a.m. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't have time to respond with everything else I got going. I will respond to you by the next school day. That's my policy. Here's my office hours. And I think if you get this established ahead of time, whatever you decide is right within your district and within your building and for your students, office hours are an important part of supporting students. And again, what's that have to do with cheating? Students who feel supported, who feel they have help, are much less likely to cheat. Interact with students for every assignment, short assessments. Do not make high stakes, high point value assessments at home because you know that the students are likely to be getting help from resources you don't want. Those things have to occur in the classroom when you're face to face. For more information on this and similar topics, nwet.org/COVID-19. This presentation and many other presentations on other topics are available through links at that website, specifically on how to provide fidelity for assessments when students are learning at home. LearnDash.com, Edtopia, and online academic community. Each of these have some fairly short articles and tips that go along and extend a little bit what I've been talking with you today. So I thank you for watching, and just one more time, nwet.org/COVID-19 for more information. Thank you.
Did you talk? Text.
Oh, texting. Yes. All right. I just had a question come in. Thank you on that. Communicating with students and parents. I encourage you to think about Zoom communications, about these office hours. You may want to communicate with some parents by texting. We do know that about 95% of homes have a cell phone with unlimited text. No extra charge, no matter how many texts they receive. This was very different just 2 or 3 years ago. But nowadays, most homes, by far the majority of them, have a cell phone with unlimited texting. So working with your district, you may want to ask for permission, see if you can communicate with your students by phone. Again, that would be during my office hours is when I would expect those communications to occur normally. You know, there's always emergencies, but typically, this is when I'd be making calls to your student. If parents are not able to communicate during those office hours, I understand work schedules and so forth, then by email or text, you can communicate with me and we'll find a time so I can talk with you about concerns or help you might need with your student. Now, these text messages, you probably know, text messages should never be sent from your personal phone to students. Well, how do I send them then? Gmail. Your school Gmail account can be used to send text messages. It's really simple, really easy, takes about 1 minute to set up. So if you're going to send a text message to me from your school Gmail account, give it a try if you want. It's 419-260-2147 at verizon.net. Every distant cell phone company has a code that you tack on to the phone number. And then it's treated just like an email. You can email me, and it will show up in my email, but you can also text me, and it will show up in my email. And I can text you using my email. So I type up my email message, just like any email message I ever would. I put a short subject down, just like I would in an email. And I type my message. There are some limitations, yes. Unlimited number of characters in text message is only for certain cell phone carriers. So I try and make that text message very short and to the point. And then I just send that email. And I can send one email. I can list all my parents, or I can put together a parent group. And those that have email or prefer to get it by email will receive an email. And those that prefer to get it by text can receive it as a text, all from my school email account, which has all the safety and security protections of my school email account, but yet all of the advantages of being able to communicate to the parent by text. And if they reply to that email, their text message comes into you as a message in your email inbox. We have a separate video on that, nwet.org/cell phones. So there's another video and slide presentation. If you want to learn more about that, you're also welcome to call. So communicating with parents, communicating with students, making low point value in terms of these at-home assignments and making sure that students know you care about them, and saving testing for when they're face-to-face. That's the best we can do to hope for fidelity. I want to share one more story with you. So I'm not sure if you're familiar or not with Google Level 1 Educator Certificate. It's a certificate that you can get from Google. It verifies that you know how to use Google Docs and Google Classroom and some other tools. You can put it with your signature. It looks kind of cool. If you're trying to present at a conference or something, you say, hey, I got Google Level 1 certification, whatever. And it's all the resources are online. It costs $10 to take the test. So, it's a pretty cheap way to get some verification. Well, Google was concerned that teachers were cheating, that when they were taking the test, they were looking up answers rather than just remembering them. So Google has introduced a brand new way of taking this online test. And this is implemented July 1st, 2020, this new, very aggressive, it takes pictures of you, the cell phone on your laptop is activated, and they can see you don't walk away, they can verify you haven't searched for answers on the laptop. All these other protocols have been put in place. Well, I'm okay at technology, but I'm not the world's greatest. So they announced all these security protocols. And so I currently have 3 different ways that you can get around those security protocols. It would take less than $30 to implement the solution that I think would be the easiest, and less than an hour for you to set things up. And this was from Google, arguably one of the best, most knowledgeable technology companies in the world. And little old me figured out how to defeat their new testing protocol in, took me about 15 minutes to figure out how to get around it. My message to Google is, you can't stop people from cheating or from using resources, which would be my preferred term, when they're at a distance. They're going to find a way to use those resources. So we got to use that distance learning opportunity to practice self-checks. Google could have put together a portfolio assessment that would have higher validity, and that's something you may want to consider, is have students work on projects where they build their portfolio. I still don't know for sure that the student did it and not the parent. And if I do think the parents are involved, I'm going to be very direct about it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Be sure to mute your cell phones. And that's all I have for today. But I am available here to answer your questions live if anyone has something. It may also type them in the chat box.
I don't.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
we'll see you later.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, yes, question?
No, I don't have any.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So with your students and your large class sizes, anything that any questions, anything you think would work, anything you think wouldn't work? Stop recording.
Well, I mean, when you talked about having practice and then I would give feedback, I mean, it is a little bit overwhelming because I have 166 students.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that I'm not quite sure how that would go.